to check with Wendy that our live stream is working. Great, fantastic. Thank you, everyone. I've got pleasure in opening the council briefing of the 4th of November 2025 at 6 p.m. and welcome everyone who is in attendance. I'd like to begin by acknowledging we're meeting on the lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people and to pay my respects to elders past and present, acknowledging that as the City of Vincent we have a role in working towards reconciliation and justice for First Nations people. Obviously I have not received any apologies because every councillor is present and that means they also don't have any approved leave of absence. So I can go straight to public question time, and I just want to check whether any of the members of public wish to speak. No. Okay then. No worries. Well, if no one wishes to speak, then you're welcome to just stay and you can watch and enjoy the fun. So if there's no questions, I've now closed public question time at 1 minute past 6. I think that's a record. Governance Manager, can you please confirm whether any statements have been received?
Through you, Mayor Zaman, there have been no written questions or statements in relation to any item on the agenda this evening.
Okay, CEO, can you please read out any declarations of interest which have been made?
Just waiting for, through Mayor Zaman, just one declaration of interest from myself and impartiality interest in relation to 12.1, which is the appointment to advisory groups. To note that I have previously worked with 3 of the nominees to the Sustainability Action Group. I had no involvement in the assessment of the candidates.
Okay, now do any other councillors have any declaration of interest that they wish to declare? Okay, so we'll just go to the items which members may want to ask questions about. Councillor Warner.
5.2 and 7.5.
Councillor Wallace.
None from me, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor LaFontaine. Councillor Greer.
In addition, 5.3, 7.4 and 8.1.
Sorry, 5.3.
Yep,
7.4
and 8.1.
And 8.1. Okay. Councillor Castle.
5.1. You've already got 5.2 and 5.3.
Yes, already got 5.2 and 5.3. Just 5.1 in addition?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Whedon?
Also 5.3.
Yep, got that.
And has anyone said 7.5?
No, yes,
Yep.
Councillor Warner said that. That's not a problem. Councillor Wolf?
No, all of mine are covered, thanks, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Poulios?
Yeah, all of mine are covered as well, thank you.
And mine are also all covered as well. Okay, so I'll go straight to the first one, which is 5.1. Councillor Castle, you had questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick one. I have a question about Clause 4, the redundant crossover. I'm just thinking about this application, should it be approved. There's no obligation on the... Sorry, I should let you take your seat first. There's no obligation on the applicant to actually go ahead with the development, even though they have a DA approved. But this particular clause is a positive obligation to remove something that would then have a community benefit. It's not something that we see very often, and I'm just wondering is what would happen if the applicant decided not to go ahead, but we still wanted that crossover removed.
Through Mayor Zaman, essentially, so if they don't go through with the development application, there wouldn't be any compel to obviously reinstate that. So it is tied specifically to this application. Obviously, it's a good opportunity if they were to reinstate it. Then obviously you've got your fence and you can reinstate through that avenue. But if they don't decide to go ahead with it, then we don't have that opportunity to tie it through for them to do it.
Okay, thanks. And I just also wondered, is there or should there be a time frame on that? Or is it really just tied to before they commence? When it says prior to the first occupation of the development, what will that mean in practice?
Through Mayor Zaman, that's something that we can tailor just to make it a bit more specific. So essentially you could say, or there's different wording in which you could apply. So for example, within 30 days of the date of the approval, you could reinstate it to that particular point. There are a number of ways in which it can be tackled. I do agree that that particular wording is probably not as clear as it could be, so we can work through that.
Thank you. That'd be great. I mean, I'm happy for that time frame to be something that is reasonable and suitable for the applicant, but it would be good to have some certainty around that to ensure that it does actually happen. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome. I had a couple of questions about some of the changes that we're seeing in the precinct more generally. I think firstly, we know from the report that there are a number of fences in the precinct now that are at 1.2 metres or higher. I'm wondering if we've got a sense of whether that's been a gradual change over time or whether it's something that's happened more recently, perhaps in connection with the rise in antisocial behaviour.
Through Mayor Zaman, from my understanding, because it does come through, it interrelates between the policy, obviously, that we do have, and also the review of that. Essentially, in undertaking that audit of the street, it seems to me that there has been sort of that gradual change within the street. In terms of the antisocial behaviour component, I probably wouldn't be able to talk to that, other than there has been that change within the street that has changed in terms of obviously the design elements. It is a shift, I guess you would say, from what it was originally with the open style fencing, and then now it's moved towards obviously the type of fencing that we do see today. So there is that shift, but it could correlate with that, but obviously can't say definitively.
Thank you, appreciate that. Given that and what we've found through the audit, is it the city's view that the 1.2 metre guideline is still appropriate?
So through Mayor Zaman, the policy is currently getting reviewed at this point in time anyway, so that will obviously go part of that particular process through the other team. Essentially, the intent is still always there to make sure that you've got your 1.2, so you have views and vistas to obviously the heritage house or the houses. There may be scope. I know that there is a bit more of an objective way to have a look at the fencing. So you may be something that you could consider, that there may be a gradual shift and change. I guess really the intention is to avoid those solid walls. So it's, essentially just applying that, but it will be going through that review process.
Are there any other questions pertaining to this item? Okay, so I'm moving on to the next one, and so that is 5.2, the public health plan. Councillor Warner, you had some questions.
I'm being nice, unlike Councillor Castle, and letting Prue take her seat. A couple of questions. First, I want to know the life vac that we've been discussing for the better part of a year. Does this fit into this plan, or is this, because this is sort of, I realise the review of the end of, so would life vac fit into the next plan?
Through you, Mayor Zaman, any new initiatives is something that we can work into our next iteration of the public health plan, but the life vac that we've done outside of that and outside of a project specifically in the plan is just additional work that we've been able to successfully achieve, which is great.
Thank you. And we've been able to communicate in the media examples of lives being saved by that, so we are really keen to champion that. The other part was the wayfinding signage plan in town centres. It says phase 1 is about to be implemented. What does this actually mean? I remember, I think it was back in 2022 perhaps, having a workshop about wayfinding and discussing, Leederville would have stars and Mount Hawthorn would have pickets and this kind of stuff, but I haven't really heard anything since. And to see that it's about to be implemented, I was just wondering where we'd gotten with that. And to find out what's happening.
Through you, Member Zaman, I might just ask Eamon to pop in.
Through you, Mayor Zaman, we are just about to draft the RFT for the fabrication and installation of the wayfinding signage. So the design package has been complete. Each town centre has its own colour palette, and the stars are in Leederville, chevrons on Beaufort Street and things like that. And yeah, that is hoping to be fabricated and installed by the end of 25-26, so June 2026.
Yeah, thank you. It was sort of on the table for a while there, and all of a sudden it just disappeared for a long time. So to see that it's finally happening is great to know. So thank you.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon. I've just got a couple of questions and take this opportunity to talk about our approach to tobacco. But the report notes that we've successfully implemented the restricted premises smoking policy to reduce tobacco-related businesses and promotion. I was just wondering if you could share a little more information on how successful that policy has been to date.
That's through you, Mayor Zamon. Perhaps if you want specifics, it's probably something I can provide you through the briefing notes. We can specifically tell you how many development applications we've reviewed and assessed against that policy.
That would be excellent, thank you. And just moving to asbestos, the report notes that we investigated complaints involving asbestos-containing material, and the city has issued formal notices for removal, and 15 letters were sent to property owners. Probably for the briefing notes, could you step us through how many of those have resulted in removal of the asbestos-containing material?
Yes, through you, Mayor Zamon. That would be through the Environmental Health team. We can provide you further details through the briefing notes, but not all asbestos needs to be removed in its entirety. It's something the city strongly encourages at any time that asbestos is brought to our attention. But yeah, I can give you a summary of what that looks like.
Excellent, thank you. That's all my questions.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question whether something might also be added to the closeout report in relation to staff engagement and wellbeing. The city conducted a productivity trial recently, and it occurred to me that that potentially added to staff wellbeing and their engagement with their workplace. So just thought I would suggest that as a good addition. And I had a question in relation to the new public health plan, whether something could be considered, whether there's any opportunities to think about discounts or incentives for external groups that run their activities or events within our facilities that contribute to physical and mental wellbeing, as a way to encourage those to happen, so hall hire and those sorts of things. Just a thought.
Great, thank you. Through you, Mayor Zamon. We will be presenting to Council at the November workshop on our draft next iteration of our public health plan, but I certainly take that on note, and it's something that we can weave into.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an incredible summary of so much work and so many highlights. I'm wondering if there will be opportunity in addition to that to reflect a little bit on some lessons learnt that might set us up for consideration of a future plan. So be that in the briefing notes or another opportunity to discuss that perhaps at a workshop.
Through you, Mayor Zamon, that is something that we will be presenting to workshop, but if you'd like some detail in the briefing notes, that's something we can provide.
Thank you, I'd appreciate that. And this one's a long shot, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I recall there being some discussions a while ago about DPLH being quite keen to sort of put planning in a box over here and public health in a box over here, and never the two shall meet. I'm wondering, in our consideration of the future public health plan, if there's any sort of strengthening to the status of the document that we can do to set it up well in terms of planning and future development applications.
Yes, through you, Mayor Zamon. In our April, when we presented the results of community consultation on our next iteration of the public health plan, urban planning and its links to public health outcomes was certainly raised at that time. It's something that we're looking at embedding into our next plan. And additionally, the state public health plan itself speaks to those partnerships coming together more, and a local public health plan must align to state public health plan priorities, so it's something that we'll be weaving into the next plan.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, so now we move on to the next item, which is 5.3, outcome of public notice proposed lease to Kids Galore. Councillor Greer, did you want to start?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Zamon. What I think is quite a simple question. I just want to clarify in 1.9.3 of the condition, we've got that they'll be required to remove the demandable building and the play equipment. And in other components, we talk about the demountable and all property. I just want to confirm that the obligation will be that they will remove all of their property from that site at the end of the lease.
Through you, Mayor Zaman, yes, that is correct. I think the reference to property relates to the playground, which is the property of Kids Galore.
Excellent, thank you. That was my only question.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. In relation to the London Street site, we know that there was a DA that was approved but not substantially commenced. Now that some of those barriers have been resolved, will there need to be a new DA, and who will be the decision maker on that?
Through Mayor Zaman, yes, that DA was approved in 2020, so lapsed in November 2024. So Kids Galore would need a new development approval for that site. The decision maker would depend on the value of the application. So if the application was over $2 million, the applicant could elect for either the city or the development assessment panel. If it was less than $2 million, then it would automatically be the city.
Is there any indication that the new DA will be substantially different from what was considered in 2020?
Through Mayor Zaman, I suppose we've been having some discussions with the applicant about what they would need on the site to help that transition and help meet some of the construction cost challenges. So it's probably not something we can put out in the public realm based on our conversations with the applicant, but yeah.
Okay, we'll wait and see. I have another question. In relation to the consultation, 71 submissions, 68 in support and 3 objecting. Are we aware how many of those people who responded are Kids Galore families?
Through you, Mayor Simon, I don't have the exact number, but there was a fair portion of the 68 that were through Kids Galore.
Thank you. And just probably would request some extra information in the risk management section. The report states it's low risk for council to grant the lease. I think that it might be useful to include some of the consideration of risk of varying our promise to the community and varying the deed and the transition plan that was originally, not varying the deed, but varying the transition plan that was originally debated and agreed with the community and with the Attorney General. I just think that probably needs to be acknowledged in the risk section, if that's okay.
Through Mayor Simon, we can.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Whedon.
Hi. I note the last extension was for 5 years, which came to nothing, and this extension is now for a further 3 years, so 2 years less time to achieve the same goal. What sort of timeline should we be expecting things such as development approvals to be coming through, and more plans so we know that they are following through?
Through you, Mayor Simon, so the applicant has provided us some further information which is included on page 4 of the report, which outlines that they're intending to lodge a new development application in January 2026, and then working through the relevant processes associated with getting the approval, building permits, and then construction. The applicant anticipates that the new facility would be completed by Q4 2027, which would fit within the lease extension. Noting as well that the conditions of the lease require the submission of a business plan and closure plan in June 2026, which would outline how the applicant is progressing in terms of getting those approvals and if they're on track.
Okay, I've got some questions, please. In relation to the provisions where you've included necessary milestones in order to meet the ongoing permission to be able to stay there, I'm concerned that the way that it's written in the proposal, I'm not sure that it it necessarily covers off a circuit breaker. What I mean by that is it talks about at C that if the city is not satisfied with the information, basically you may provide the tenant with notice specifying the additional information and the time frame, and then if they fail to do that, or any additional information requested by the city may terminate the lease. But what it doesn't do is talk about the provision of information to the satisfaction of the city. So I'm just a bit concerned that it's still a little bit open, so that it can't be that they merely provide this, but it needs to be substantive enough to be able to satisfy the city that the milestones are being achieved. It might actually be intended within those provisions, but it's not actually how it's worded. So I'm just flagging that, and I'm wondering, and I'm contemplating whether it just needs to have an additional amendment to ensure that outcome. If you wanted to make any comment in response to that. I suppose my quick question is, can I confirm that it is the intention that if any of those milestones are not met to the satisfaction of the city, that you can terminate the lease immediately?
To you, Mayor Zamon, yeah, that's my understanding, but we can cast a fresh eye over the recommendation as part of the briefing notes and update if necessary.
Okay, that would be helpful, because if that is the intention, I would suggest that perhaps it just needs to tighten up the wording a little bit further to make that absolutely clear. That would also give, I suspect, some comfort to councillors in the event that that is being considered to extend. Are there any other comments from councillors? Councillor Poulios.
Yeah, I just want to know, and if you don't have this information, that's fine to get back to us. Does the city know that, say, hypothetically, if the operator can't sort of get the development gone within the 2 years and they have to vacate, is there enough capacity? And I know it's not sort of council's job to look at this. Is there enough capacity from the existing providers around in the area that there would be, I guess, sufficient space for them to still have somewhere to take their kids? Or
Through you, Mayor Zamon, I'm not sure on the exact capacity, but from reviewing the submissions, I suppose anecdotally from parents of kids who go to Kids Galore, that would suggest that there probably isn't, and that they are very much supportive of this facility because of its location, and that it does fill a gap. So my suspicion would be no, there isn't capacity in the area.
and also, the second question, is there any bank guarantees or any bonds on the current lease that will be transferred to this new one, more in relation to 1.9.3 in the removal of demountable buildings and the playgrounds? If something was to happen and they didn't proceed with this new development, that the city's not liable, that it could come out of some sort of bank guarantee or bond?
Through you, Mayor Zamon, we'll confirm that as part of the briefing notes.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, so I'll move on to the next one. The next item is 7.4, advertising of draft Youth Action Plan 2026 and beyond deliverables. Councillor Greer, you had some questions.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Zamon. I've got a few questions. It's really exciting to be at this place of having a new youth action plan. The first one, we've got in there that a comprehensive youth-focused communications plan will be developed to promote the consultation period. I was just wondering if you could provide more information now or in the briefing notes of how that might differ from our usual approach, so we can hear from young people what they think about this.
Through you, Mayor Zamon, I can definitely provide you with the details in the briefing notes, but we're basically focused on youth channels, just to try and make sure that we've got the voice of all young people in Vincent, but I'll add that to the briefing notes.
Excellent, thank you. My next question is that from my review of the actions, while we've got it lists community organisations, we haven't specifically named sporting clubs or sporting recreational activities. And I was just wondering if that was a deliberate decision, or if we've had consideration of specifically naming access to sports to be considered, because in the comments further above it did say that a lot of young people are struggling to afford like organised sports, and just wondering if we've thought about including sports specifically.
Through you, Mayor Simon, I just need to read through all the deliverables again, and that definitely should be added if it's not. Yeah.
Great, thank you. One thing I was really pleased to see is the number of people that we got that identified as neurodivergent through the process. And I'm just looking for ways to make sure we're doing the absolute best practice that we can through the youth plan to include neurodivergent folks. My first, what I'm really trying to achieve is a way to include the wording sensory friendly more often through our activities and events. It's really pleasing that we've got the word accessible, and I think often the bar for that is physically accessible. And I'm just looking for ways that we could perhaps include sensory friendly. An example could be 2.14, where we've got provide engaging, accessible youth programs in community spaces, ensuring opportunities for every young person to participate, whether there could be consideration including sensory friendly in some of the actions.
Through you, Mayor Simon, yes, we can definitely consider that, yeah. Or add that in.
Excellent. Thank you. And just one more question. We've got 224 speaks specifically to develop a suite of program designed for neurodivergent, LGBTIQA+, and other marginalised youth with mentoring and support. I was wondering if there could be consideration of separating out those categories. So we've got one action for neurodivergent folks, a separate action for LGBTIQA+ people, so that we're able to clearly track which ones we are achieving and which ones we're not going forward.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Simon, we can definitely do that, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you. I had some of the same questions, so thank you, Councillor Greer. I wanted to ask about section 1.1. There was mention in the report from the consultation conducted by YACWA that creation of new third spaces was something that young people were looking for. And I noticed that action 1.1.1 is long term, which talks about assessing the city spaces to meet youth needs. And then there are various other actions about improving our existing spaces. And I wondered if there's scope for, my first question was around the long-term nature of that first action, if that is the sort of foundation action for the others. And also, was there any consideration about an action for creation of new spaces? Oh, that's my first question.
Through you, Mayor Simon, I think the intention was that the 1.1.1 would be all around new spaces as opposed to existing spaces, but I can clarify that in the briefing notes as well.
Thank you, that would be good. I almost had the inverse question around non-sporting club and making sure that that's included in what we're talking about, ways for young people to find connection and a sense of belonging, that if they're not interested in participating in sporting clubs. And I wondered if we could consider action that might refer to other non-sporting activities, craft, knitting. My daughter loves going to a Knits and Flicks activity at the cinema, so I thought there might actually be options to consider some partnerships with local businesses and other ways that we could investigate non-sporting clubs, I suppose, on activities for people to be involved. I also had a couple of other questions. 3.2.2 refers to exploring and trialling a peer-to-peer amplifier team of youth communicators. I just wondered if we could have some more information on what that is. Happy for that to be in the briefing note.
I can answer that one. That one's about, they're almost like influencers, so it's about getting young people in the community to amplify our messaging for us to be an additional comms resource for us. The reason why it's longer term is just trying to reach those people, trying to build up those networks, and then trying to work out a process that we can provide them with the messaging, and then how do they share it, and then how do we measure it. So it was just something that we just needed a bit of time to explore, but that came out quite clearly from the peer research.
And do you anticipate that to be a paid opportunity or employment, or that's what you've got to investigate?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Simon. Yeah, that's what we've got to work out, and what would actually work and what would motivate people to want to do it. And I imagine there would have to be some incentive in there for them.
Thank you. At 4.2.1, I was really happy to see actions around volunteering, and I just wondered if there had been any consideration to specifically calling out opportunities for under 18s, because that can be quite difficult to find, and whether it says encourage local groups, which I think is great. I'm thinking if we could have encourage more of our local community groups to provide opportunities for volunteering, and organisations, and I'm hoping that is broad enough to encompass like Volunteering WA and other peak bodies.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 questions from me, please. Is the intention to evaluate these deliverables at the end of the plan to see sort of whether or not they have made an impact in the lives of young people?
Through you, Mayor Simon. Yes, we report on the Youth Action Plan quarterly, I believe, to Council. So we'll be evaluating as we're reporting, and yeah, I think that the evaluation will inform the next iteration of the Youth Action Plan as well.
And my subsequent question to that was, do we feel that they are appropriately measurable?
Through you, Mayor Simon, yes, I think they are, and we have been through them. I mean, we're still waiting for community consultation on this, and there might be additional feedback, there might be new deliverables, but the ones that we've included, I definitely feel like they are measurable. Yeah.
Thank you. And I noticed in the report that there was a comment about budget being allocated for this financial year only. At the beginning of the plan, do we usually do up like an estimated cost for implementing the entire plan?
Through you, Mayor Simon, we usually just do it on a year-by-year basis, and we pretty much fit the deliverables to the budget as opposed to the other way around. But because our budgets are reviewed every year, we can only look at annual budgets anyway.
Are there any other questions in relation to this item? Okay, so I'm now going to move on to the next one, and the next one is 7.5, the street activation policy. Councillor Warner, you had some questions?
It's you again. Hi. Yeah, this needs to be repealed because it's changed. It's a completely different world than what it was. I used to park my car, and that used to be the mitigating factor. So what we're offering here is a support matrix for people. How does that actually work? And does it actually give them anything? I mean, we've got the support matrix that will help people decide what traffic management they need, but also, I guess, for the people, we're coming into the Christmas party season and the, summer and that kind of stuff. Are we really only going to be able to tell people, no, you can't actually do anything because you need to have qualified people running it, and they come at a cost? So is there, I want to know if there's something that we can be putting out there that is actually not so dispiriting. How can we encourage community engagement and activation without bursting their bubble, basically?
Through you, Mayor Simon, yeah, completely agree. And the intent of repealing the policy is not to stop street activation, but it's just a way of working out how we can best manage it. So the proposal is that we will direct, and we have been for the last 4 years since the code changed, directing people where possible to their local parks and waiving the fees for the park. So there are a lot of people who live within very close proximity of a park, and they're usually quite happy to have their proposed Christmas party or drinks or whatever in that park, and we waive the fee for that, and then we help them in other ways. And then the proposed procedure for anyone who sort of falls outside that area is to support them financially through our community donations, which obviously isn't an endless bucket, but there aren't that many people who apply who still need to close the street, but those that do, we would help them financially with the donation. But traffic management is expensive, and it's not something that a lot of small groups of people can afford. So we're also going to look at our agreement with the traffic management company and see if there's any way we can negotiate a cheaper rate for smaller activations.
So I'm obviously disappointed that we're having to repeal this policy. It's out of our control in terms of the changes. It's particularly concerning because we have dead-end streets and the like that could well be closed, where every single neighbour is happy to do it. But anyway, my question is actually about laneways, because I know that a lot of the various community get-togethers that I go to aren't at parks, but they're actually in some of our best laneways. Could you give me an indication of how that's going to be affected or not?
Yes, laneways are considered roads, so they have to be treated in exactly the same way if the community asks us.
If the community asks, okie dokie. Thank you. Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon. Just a quick question around the support matrix. We've got a list of dot points there. Are those the finalised support matrix that will be included? If so, is it possible to provide a little bit more context just so people can understand what to expect? For example, the number of attendees. Is that a larger event or a smaller event is considered potential for financial support to close the road, or just a bit more detail on that matrix?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Zamon, I can provide that in the briefing notes, but yes, basically the more attendees proposed, as long as it's under the number of attendees for a small activation, would be categorised higher than less attendees. But I can provide that in the briefing notes.
Yeah, excellent. If that could be provided for the list of dot points, just to understand the range, not just the number of attendees. Thank you.
Are there any other questions in relation to this item? Councillor Whedon.
Do we have statistics to tell us how many local community events will be impacted by this, and how many requests for matrix we're expecting? And also, if it has been going on for several years, how many applications have already been diverted to parks?
Through you, Mayor Zamon, yes, we do. Between 1 and 8 a year it's been since the policy was initiated, but I can provide you with information about how many have been diverted to parks, and then how many I could potentially provide you with those that have not taken up the offer based on the cost of the traffic management.
Are there any other questions in relation to this item? Okay, so we'll move on to the final item, which is 8.1, the appointment of council members and community representatives to advisory groups. Councillor Greer, you had some questions.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon. I just wanted to discuss the proposed sustainability advisory group, particularly to remove transport from the remit of the group. I just wanted to make sure that I understood correctly that we're proposing transport belongs in a working group. I just wanted to confirm that that's different than an advisory group. Is that correct?
Through Mayor Zamon, yes. So the working group would not only have community members that could join, but also external stakeholders like Main Roads WA, RAC as well.
Thank you. And do we have an estimated time frame for the establishment of that advisory group?
Through Mayor Zamon, so that would be established to support the major review of the Accessible City Strategy, which is commencing shortly. So it would be aligned with that, but we can review, and if there's a further time frame, provided in the briefing notes.
That would be great. I think people would be quite concerned for us not to have a focus on transport without an understanding of when that would be picked back up. And from what you've just shared, there would still be community members on that group. Is that correct?
Through Mayor Zamon, yeah, that would be the intent. So community members as well as the stakeholders.
Excellent. And would that still be an appointment of the council?
Through Mayor Zamon, no. So the working group would be set up differently, similar to how administration has been running sort of community focus groups and things like that, where we would also pull from the people who had applied, the nominees for the Sustainability Advisory Group with the transport expertise, and we've already had some conversations with those respective members about their interest.
Excellent, and it's probably a very basic question, but would there be a member of the council on the advisory group? On the working group, sorry. Yeah.
Through you, Mayor Zamon, we can confirm that in the briefing notes.
Thank you. And just one more question. Would we anticipate there'd be a new cost associated with establishing a new group?
Through Mayor Zamon, no, I don't think there would be. The members aren't paid similar to the advisory group, so it would just be sort of staff time associated with facilitating that.
Excellent. Thank you. And just so I know it's spoken to a little bit in the proposal, but just to understand from administration's perspective, what do you see as the reason we need to set up a separate group rather than continuing that to be in the sustainability and transport group?
Through you, Mayor Zamon, there's probably a couple of factors. So when the sustainability group was first formed in July 2020, it kind of missed the boat with the timing of when the accessible city strategy was approved by council in October of that year. So since that time, it's really only been orientated towards sustainability. That orientation got confirmed in 2023 when the objectives were updated and were developed around supporting the preparation of the enhanced environment strategy and then the subsequent implementation. The enhanced environment strategy has been approved by council this year, so it's now being implemented. So the next iteration of the group was really around supporting the climate transition action plan that would support the city's pathway to net zero. Transport would have more of a focus around the accessible city strategy, which are, I suppose, two separate projects with different objectives relating to them. So administration's intention in confirming how the group would operate was really around making sure that they were fit for purpose and could focus on the particular projects that they were going to provide advice on, rather than probably conflating and having competing priorities within each.
Thank you. That was all my questions.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure I'm really clear why the suggestion is for it to be a working group and not an advisory group. We have in the past had an advisory group dedicated to transport. It was called the UMAG, Urban Mobility Advisory Group, prior to the Sustainability and Transport one merging. And I suppose I'd just like to understand why, if we propose to separate the two issues, why we wouldn't be looking at another advisory group.
Through Mayor Zamon, we could provide that through the briefing notes.
Are there any other questions in relation to this item? I'm going to flag that might actually bring an amendment to establish a transport advisory group that would consist of of community members and also up to 4 councillors. If we're going to have the Sustainability Action Group with a particular focus, we would also have the Transport Action Group with a particular focus. My particular interest is on bike paths and e-ridables, and then we would have the Arts Advisory Group as well. I'm also going to flag that I'll be seeking an amendment with the Arts Advisory Group to have up to 4 council members, so we can have consistency across all those advisory groups, so that if councillors want to be involved, there's a greater opportunity for them to be able to participate in the advisory groups. Recognising that it still might be worthwhile to have an advisory group and a working group with that can utilise that external expertise and with that very particular focus. But one of the things I like about our advisory groups is that they can take a broader view of matters if they want to bring it to the attention of council and administration. Are there any other questions in relation to this item? Okay, well, in that case, I thank the public and the live stream viewers, and I close the meeting at